Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome from Toronto, Canada. 2020 is a catastrophe for tourism business because of COVID-19. Travel and tourism accounts for some 10% of global GDP and 1 in 10 jobs. As many as a third of these jobs, or more than 100 million positions, and some 2.7 trillion in GDP could be at risk as a result of the current crisis. World Tourism Forum Institute's prime agenda is to reshape economies through tourism, with specific focus on developing destinations where these crises may have a maximum impact. Therefore, it's important to focus on these countries. Today, I have a rare town hall meeting with the Honorable Minister Tourism and Chairman Pakistan National Tourism Coordination Board, Mr. Zulfi Bukhari. Welcome to our forum.
Thank you, Sumaira. Thank you very much.
And I believe you are in Islamabad right now.
Yes, I'm in beautiful Islamabad, which you've visited many times, and which I feel is one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
Thank you. Great. For most people around the world, Pakistan is defined by the media as an unsafe destination where terrorists run rampant. However, since your government came into power, Pakistan's image has undergone tremendous change. You, as part of Prime Minister Imran Khan's government, are on an ambitious plan to change the image of the country from terrorism to tourism. But even though a lot of effort has been made, there are still so many negative stories around the destination that it's not the obvious choice for many international tourists. So from that perspective, I would place you in the new kid on the block on the international tourism circuit. You were about to embark and jumpstart tourism in the country, and then COVID happened. However, before we get to it, it will be fair to begin Pakistan's story pre-COVID time. Where were you in terms of your plans? Walk us through these.
Look, even before our plans, I think it's imperative that we explain where tourism was in Pakistan. You were right. It was unfortunately tagged with this baggage of, you can say, late 90s, early 2000s. And unfortunately, the people within Pakistan turned the page and came up to 2020. But outside of Pakistan, people were still on the wrong page, which was over a decade ago. I think Pakistan's come leaps and bounds, and by the grace of God, that after our government took over, 2019 was the safest year in Pakistan's history in the last 10 years. So that was a great plus point. And tourism as a whole, unfortunately, was always neglected. We are fortunate enough that we have a prime minister where tourism was his passion even before he became the PM. And I, in particular, was extremely fortunate because I was allowed to travel a lot of Pakistan with him. So I got to see places which perhaps a lot of people may not. And he realized the beauty of it. And he realized that tourism is going to play a big role in a poverty-driven country like Pakistan, which is naturally very scenic and beautiful, but it has issues economically. And as you and the World Tourism Forum very well know, and I'm sure the viewers as well, is that one of the best economic drivers in the world today is tourism. And, on an average, it consists of 10% of the GDP. In Pakistan, it's only about 2.8, 2.9% of the GDP. So the goal was that we can try to even take it to 7, 8% in our first term. And that would take us leaps and bounds. And it's a far quicker fix than setting up industries and whatnot. So we were on the move. We had the PM is our best and greatest ambassador for it. We opened up Kartarpur corridor, which is a corridor linking from India to Pakistan, based on Sikhism and their spiritual place. We opened up, we renovated a lot of Hindu temples. We're now linking all our Buddhist trail from the north all the way down to Kashmir. And along with it, we've opened up beautiful ski resorts. We had an amazing set of skiers come in from the United States and all around the world. The ex-Prime Minister of Spain, Princess Patrice, all of them had So, you know, Pakistan all of a sudden, under the leadership of Imran Khan, all of a sudden started becoming this sort of cool place where, you know, one can say kind of Marrakesh before, maybe Marrakesh, maybe what, 20, 25 years ago, where everyone was kind of bored of Saint-Tropez and so on and so forth, and they wanted this cool, exotic place to be. And Pakistan, I felt, was kind of getting to that tipping point where it was reaching that. You know, we had good articles in Forbes, we had good coverage in Bloomberg, Condé Nast rated us #1 exotic, you know, places in the world. So we were just taking off, and as you very well know, and also again, thank you to the World Tourism Forum. We, you know, negotiations with them, talks with you guys. We took a lot of advice from all of you. You know, we were taking tourism very, very seriously, to the extent that the Prime Minister became the head of the tourism himself. And then later, as things got busy, he delegated it to me. And it's on our top agenda. So we revamped our entire organizations and authority and boards. And we were going and pushing for a very big brand Pakistan, which we will, God willing, launch right after now COVID-19 comes to an halt.
Okay, so that's a pretty tall order. That's a lot of achievement in a very short time. And I know I was there. I shared some of your vision, and it was really exciting times. Okay, so let's fast forward to now when COVID has happened. We are all living through very unprecedented times, and and it's a difficult piece of history. It's in tourism is being impacted like none other industry. So tell us how your government is handling the crisis from tourism perspective. You stand to lose. I believe there have been some scenario analysis have been conducted by your task force. Crisis management task force has been created, and by some estimates, you stand to lose about 500,000 to 1 million jobs in Pakistan. That's really, really hard for an economy which is just beginning to come out, you know, and stand on its feet, like you've said. So share some of that readiness actions that have been put in place.
Well, what we are doing is that we've realized that the tourism industry in Pakistan and across the world has been hit the most. The hospitality sector, although we've eased out on lockdowns, but again, hospitality is something which is the last phase, as you see in Britain and Turkey and everywhere else. Yeah. They get hit. So the hoteliers, the tour operators, the smaller motels, guest houses, they're all suffering. And this, you know, I will say that we've been really unlucky because this was really the peak of tourism coming in just after our Eid over here in the next 10 odd days. Usually it's the boom of tourism all the way till the end of summer, especially in our most scenic areas, which is all the mountain ranges that we have. So that's going to be affected badly. We have, though, however, tried to prepare ourselves to the best of our ability. We have like you said, our crisis management team that's working on it for COVID. And, you know, we've created some SOPs where we made the first draft. We're further sort of correcting it so that when we get to a stage of opening up, we have the SOPs are ready to go and we don't have to waste even a day. At the same time, we've put a revival sort of strategy together. We've given 3-4% interest rates, you know, for cash flow loans. We've given loan with the loans that you have. We're trying to give allowing them to give deferred payments on it. We have this amazing program, which is the biggest social welfare program in the subcontinent called Asas, which we are, you know, giving out money around 12,000 rupees per person across the population of the deserving that are destitute, that don't have much work going on. And, you know, utility bills, we've deferred for 3 months. SMEs, we're giving, you know, support to them of, you know, a 50 million rupee package we're coming up with. are, the registration fees for tourism, tour operators and everything, we've deferred that for a year. What the pensions that people have to give for salaries, we've also deferred that by 1 year as well. So we're trying to take as much pressure off, the employers as possible, so that they don't end up trying to, sack too many people.
Right. I think this is absolutely important, that, because I've been talking to a lot of governments, and that although the schemes are there, it's how quickly you get the money into people's hand directly, to save those small-time jobs. It's absolutely essential for the survival of the tourism industry. Without that, it's no go at all. So what you are talking about opening. So when do you foresee that Pakistan will start opening for tourism? Because it depends on flights, it depends on other countries, so many factors.
It's such a difficult question to answer at this point. I mean, we've opened up flights, but there's special flights where we're taking around 10,000 people per week only. And those are only to bring what we would call our stranded Pakistanis back home.
Right.
So it's very difficult to really say when we'll go back to normality. But I do know one thing, that the minute that these sector opens, I know that the inbound or the local tourism is just going to absolutely boom, because people have been coped up in their homes, and they haven't been able to travel. Disposable income has decreased to do foreign travel, so they'll stick more to domestic travel. And Pakistan has a slightly different mindset from perhaps Western countries, whereby they will still be quite proportionate about everything. We will kind of be like liberated, and I feel there will be a boom, and we have to be prepared for that, and we have to have certain SOPs ready before that happens. The last thing we would want is that we open up and God forbid a breakout happens in one of our tourist places. So those SOPs are very, very important.
But your numbers have been low, right? On if you compare it with the rest of the world, you guys have contained. I think therein lies also a great opportunity and story for Pakistan, because your numbers have been low. So in terms of containment, you guys have done pretty well.
Yes, thank by the grace of God, we've been much lesser than a lot of the countries. However, it's an evolving situation. It could change at any time. We've seen a slight, I wouldn't call it a spike, but a slight rise in our death toll daily. We were at 11, 12 at one point, and we shot to about 40 odd. But still considerably, if you look at fine, our testing isn't as much as other countries, but if you look at just the number of deaths, and then you look at the people recovering, and then you look at the people in critical conditions, those are the factors that don't change.
Right.
And we have those numbers, and those numbers aren't something that you need more testing for. You know how many people are on ventilators, you know how many people are in ICU. That is still relatively far less than this, curve that we keep talking about. But the biggest factor, again, is like what you raised at the beginning, is that over here will Corona kill you first, or will hunger? So our Prime Minister was faced with this catch-22, and I must say, I mean, I'm part of his cabinet, but I still, with non-bias, I would say I'm so impressed with the way that he has led in this situation, because, and I see other countries following it. He has said things which are far more progressive, coming from a country which, like you said at the beginning, which is not looked upon as a progressive country, as a developing country, and so on. And he's, I think, led the way in terms of that right balance of stomach and Corona, hunger and Corona.
Great. So tell me that we are talking about tourists, but do you, and you have been personally involved, because you have another role to play in the government where you represent the overseas Pakistanis. So you've been really, really busy trying to bring them back into the country. But have you had a situation where you've had any tourists stranded in Pakistan currently? And if they have been, what sort of support have you given them, and especially in those remote areas? So how did you manage that? And did you have to get them out of the country? Talk to me about it.
Look, it wasn't so bad here because like you said, the corona didn't kick in and spike the way it did in other countries where everything went into a sudden lockdown. So there was time. We did have some foreigners stuck in, because a lot of came for skiing this year. So
Right.
we had I wouldn't say that, actually, I wouldn't use the word stuck. They were just skiing in certain parts of Pakistan, and as we started looking towards corona, started getting affected, and looking, and then the government started taking action. They made their way down to the capital and other main cities. Once they were here, it's very difficult to sometimes bifurcate between the complete tourist and then the Pakistani who also has a dual nationality or is of another nationality,
Right.
and he's here for relatives or weddings and so on and so forth. So there were a lot of them stuck, along with
Visiting friends and family.
friends and family, correct. So a lot of them were stuck that needed to go back to their respective countries where they have residence. But we've worked very hard. Credit goes to the embassies here. The British embassy has done a marvelous job. The Canadian embassy has done a great job. Saudi, Qatar, UAE. So they all got their people out, and we facilitated to make sure that their flights are taken care of. So I think it's been okay. We had about a 10-day or 2-week shutdown of airspace, and now we've overcome that now. So the airspace, in the sense of people going out, is not a problem. Coming in, we're just controlling it because we're quarantining everyone. We're doing a PCR test, a swab test, and then putting them into quarantine. So that's why we've kept the numbers relatively low. But going out, there's no restriction in Pakistan now. You can go out as you please, providing that there's a flight.
Right. So I myself, because I'm in Toronto and I was supposed to fly to Islamabad, and I got stuck here. And I was like myself really, really surprised at how quickly Pakistan started ramping up on the media, how started educating people through the media. Advertisements started coming in. The Prime Minister himself started addressing the nation, leading from the front, that this crisis is happening. And I think it took Pakistan by surprise somewhat, and because within a week you guys were in a state of readiness, and it was very obvious through your channels, and how some of the anchors were educating people. And so it's quite commendable, that how you people ramped up very quickly. So if you do start opening, this is going to change the trajectory of tourism completely, not just in Pakistan, but all around the world.
Yeah.
What sort of tourists are you expecting, or what sort of tourists you want to open your doors to? Is it going to be about mass tourism? Is it a domestic tourism which will lead? But internationally, what will your target be?
Internationally, we would say that we would love our target audience to be ideally family-oriented tourism, along with adventure tourism, because Pakistan has, it has a vast landscape, a very diverse landscape. So I think that's very interesting for us, and that's what we're going to be focusing on. Like I said, once we open as well, and we feel the timing is right, we are straight away going to go into launching brand Pakistan and showing the world exactly what we have and what we consist of. But with Pakistan, I think we get a lot of tourists from the Middle East, and at the same time, we have obviously China at one end, which again, they need to travel, they want to get out. Right. So but family-oriented tourists, because we have beautiful spots up in the mountains, we have great guest houses, and so I think it's a lovely time for people to come. And because these places are slightly somewhat isolated, I would say, it kind of fits into the scheme of things, or with COVID as well. The last thing you want to do is go onto go to, Mexico and end up in a mass resort with 3,000 people in this big sort of sandals resort or something. You want to be a little bit isolated, a little bit more nature-esque, one would say, and Pakistan is perfect for that.
Yeah, and I think that's what the world is moving towards. This is the time for small boutique hotels, resorts, to start offering their products, and they're much more easier to manage as well, much more easier to apply your SOPs, and I think it's buying that peace of mind for the end consumer. That's absolutely critical. So what I'm hearing is no mass tourism, more towards religious tourism, mountains, sustainability, and eco-tourism. That's what's...
Absolutely. I think even despite COVID, if even COVID wasn't about and didn't exist, Pakistan, as a policy, which you are well aware of, we were never fond of mass tourism. Yes, we want a good influx, and yes, we want people to come, but mass tourism isn't part of Pakistan's real policy, because Pakistan's beauty is its nature. And usually when you have mass tourism, it reflects on its nature. It destroys it somewhat. And Pakistan is some places sell well as mass tourism. Pakistan is not one of those places. Pakistan, it's all about natural beauty, beautiful resorts and exotic locations, and the people and the food. And these are the things that really one wants to. So it's a place where you absorb the atmosphere into you. It's not a place where you go into this big resort with water slides and whatnot, and you just stay there for 7 days and you come back. This is a place where you explore.
Okay, and you've got some amazing provinces, and each province has a different product offering. And
Yes.
I think that to me, Pakistan is also like a repeat destination, because it's nearly impossible to cover it end to end, and each because there's a wealth of products. There's right now the focus is on the north, but even in the south, and and I think there's a lot of development that is taking place in Punjab as well. I think the product is very vast.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to sound like a tour operator or one of those tour videos, but genuinely our diversity, like I said, out of the 10 highest peaks of the world, we have 6 of them. We have around a 1,280-kilometer beach coastal line. We have some of the best pastures. We have green top mountains. We have red clay mountains. We have
And desert.
beach. You've got one of the best deserts in Punjab. And then you've got some of the most fabulous ancient history. So places, stupa, from Buddhist stupas to Sikh gurdwaras, to the most amount of churches in any Muslim country, to, Mohenjo-daro, down to Sufi saints. I mean, it just doesn't end.
Right.
Then you take that into markets and bazaars, and you've got traditional clothing, you've got a fusion of clothing with the West, and same with our cuisine. And again, I'll come back to the people, the hospitality. I mean, when you go onto these travel blogs, the bloggers stay in Pakistan longer than they stay in any other country, because the warmth and the hospitality they feel, which is completely opposite towards what the rhetoric has been for so many years.
Absolutely. I think it's the people, the simplicity of the people, which is very rare to find, and the hospitality and the food and the vibrancy of the culture. All of those aspects make Pakistan very, very unique. You are a politician, so I can't resist asking you a question. Most countries are scrambling to rewrite their tourism plans. However, in Pakistan, we are just getting started. You are in a comfortable place, with your recovery plans and all of that. But I wanted to ask you about regional tourism bubbles or corridors. Do you force, one example is between New Zealand and Australia. The pandemic is reshaping relationships between governments for better or for worse. As a politician, do you believe in post-COVID tourism diplomacy? I mean, in particular with your neighbor, India. Do you think a time will come when tourists from both the countries will be able to travel freely, travel across the borders, and enjoy the wealth of tourism products in both the countries?
Firstly, Sumaira, you say that you're a politician with a very disgusted look.
No, no, I admire you for that.
So, look, the truth of the matter is that, you know, we have a very good relationship with China, a fantastic, wonderful relationship with China. We have a very good relationship with Iran. You know, Afghanistan has always been unstable and has its difficulties. And India, you know, which is, you know, second largest economy in the world, you can say, it's you know, we from day one, if you look at our prime minister, he's always waved the olive branch, and in fact on record he's there to say that we wanted to see an India-Pakistan border which was like the European Union, where you just cross border and you go. So if you ask me as a politician and how I would like to see India-Pakistan, I would follow my leader's vision. And I would say that I would love to see an India-Pakistan where, again, it would be like the European Union, and we can go back and forth, and for tourism and for business. And I think it would be help both countries most. Unfortunately, it hasn't gone down that way for obvious reasons that you know.
Yeah.
India is going completely down another route, and Pakistan's, you know, like you said, is really trying to open up itself and have the world come over, and India is kind of isolating itself into its own little bubble, which unfortunately has taken the world by storm, I would say.
You've already done that, right? Through the corridor, the sea corridor.
Yeah, I mean, when we've done it at a time when we're not even on talking terms with India, but we didn't want, you know, especially the Sikh community to suffer because of the mistakes of one man. You know, it's got nothing to do with their faith. It's got nothing to do with what the people want to see. So both sides, we didn't want people to suffer. So we did it at a time when you can say the relationship between India and Pakistan was at rock bottom. But we still did it. And, you know, credit to the Prime Minister.
It's been very successful. I know because, you know, you open, so we are talking about here about the Sikh corridor that has been created for the pilgrimage. I know that a lot of Canadian Sikhs from here have gone to Pakistan. I myself had the honor to send some senior officials, you know, help them get in from the World Tourism Sikh organization from here in Canada. And they were so impressed with everything that was happening in the hospitality, the handling of the Pakistani officials at the borders, you know. So I think there's a really good story to be told there. Unfortunately, they had to leave in a rush because the COVID happened and the Canadian borders started closing. But I think post-COVID, that's going to be a jewel in your crown where tourism is concerned, that particular story. Okay, moving on. So what happens now, you know, in terms of your recovery, you know, that this is like a stopgap situation right now. It gives you a little bit more time to fine tune your product in Pakistan. So when I say fine tune, is this the time to invest in Pakistan? For example, hotels, attractions. If so, why Pakistan? How will your government support if there are any international investors today interested to come to Pakistan? Will there be ease of business that you can provide? Talk to us about it.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of our tourism zones that we're creating and investment into tourism, we're trying to make as easy as possible and bring into a one-window solution. Having said that, we've also we're trying to put into the next budget that all sort of equipment that's used in hotels, kitchen and all other sort of equipment within hotels should become in duty free. So we bring it in as an incentive for them, that even if Corona is there and tourism is taking a hit, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't start developing for the future. Because the minute Corona goes away, there's going to be a huge boom. So we're trying to incentivize people. The Prime Minister also was one of the first countries to allow construction to continue. So we opened up most of our construction sector. So people that are building their resorts and guest houses and hotels can continue to do so. So I think this is the time, because you waste so much time developing things that you might as well do it at a time when you're not losing out on business, because there is none at the moment. And also I would just add that in Pakistan we've got a phenomenal amount of government property, which now we're finally starting to lease out to the private sector. So those will be out for the public's view, and they're allowed to lease them on a long lease and develop on them. So this kind of entrepreneurism was never done before. Usually you just end up leasing on 3 to 5 years. Now we're giving about 33-year leases out, so people don't have to buy land. They can lease it and develop a hotel or resort or what have you, and start renting it and making money immediately. So there are a lot of initiatives to go in now.
Okay, that's good to know, because I think Pakistan is a rare opportunity where, the hotel groups today, I know that Accor was looking at Pakistan. I personally spoke to a few people in their headquarters in Dubai and several other. So, but I think it's time also to be careful that what sort of investments happen, what sort of resorts that you guys build, because this is now the time to relook at the product and reevaluate, what the priorities are going forward, depending on how quickly you can open up. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So any final thoughts?
Final thoughts are just this, that I would wish all my viewers and yourself and the entire team, the chairman especially, to be healthy, be safe, be precautionate, and be patient. And the minute that Corona starts to go away and die down, and we're all hoping that things will go back to normal, but we are in a new world. And we have to, like I think we've heard from Germany, that you either have to live with it or fight it all the time. So we have to find ways to live with it. And again, I wish everyone the best and to be safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I hope to see a lot more of you and you and everyone else in Pakistan.
Absolutely. That's my intention as well. So humans are social animals. So the terms such as social distancing do not apply to tourism. It's about smart physical distancing and smart gatherings. As we live through the new normal, and the world will perhaps need a new destination, a new place where no one has been before, pure and pristine, Pakistan could be the one. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Sumaira. Take care.